In the spring of 2018, I moved into a new apartment, igniting a new chapter in my life. It was a tiny little box in an old mill building, but it had everything I needed: washer and dryer, dishwasher, and even central AC. There wasn't a lot of space to work with, but that was kind of the fun part. It meant I had to get creative with the design, and that since there was so little space, every object had to count. There was a bedroom with a small closet, the main drag, which was a long rectangle, a small bathroom, and a tiny kitchen. Design is one of my favorite outlets, so I got to work right away. The space was going to be my home as well as my creative office. I didn't own much more than camera equipment and photo shoot props at the time, so I had to buy everything from scratch. From furniture to little home supplies, there were weeks of chipping away at it all. Running back and forth from the furniture store and Target, it was slowly starting to come together. I would have rather searched antique stores and found items I absolutely loved over time, but I needed a place to live and work as soon as possible. This was during the time Dave and I did our California adventure series, which you can watch on this channel. And we started flying all over the country, creating a lot of content for real estate companies. I was also creating content for global brands and promoting it on my Instagram, and just starting to put a lot of time into this YouTube channel, and people began to notice. I only had my red truck, which wasn't running, and my Land Rover, which looked nothing like it does now. And so packages kept pouring in, and little by little, the place was coming together. I even had my home studio started. And with big real estate work trips on the horizon, I started upgrading all my equipment with the money I was making from my brand deals. My dreams were starting to come together. I was no longer just a kid with a camera, but starting to make a real business for myself. And I broke 1 million watch time minutes on YouTube and had a total of 300,000 views on this channel. And things were hectic, but coming together nicely. Dave and I would be gone for weeks at a time tackling our work trips, and I would chip away at the apartment when I was home. More furniture, lighting, and decorations were appearing every week. And then I bought my current daily driver with the money from my real estate gigs. An Audi SQ5 with brown leather interior, a dream car of mine. So now I had something reliable rather than just the Rover. And as the packages kept coming in, more and more character was showing up in the apartment. I even had a setup for podcasts at my little cafe table. And in the middle of all this, my good friend Mitch spotted a dream of mine parked near our gym, a '71 Volkswagen van for sale. I had been spending money like crazy, but I couldn't pass it up. So I got a loan and I made it mine. And a lot of other cool jobs kept popping up that I never got to share, like shooting for Samsung out in Boston. I was still practicing my music a lot while taking on more work than I ever had before, and starting to really hone in on my business. And my mom was just starting to create Little Trout and Coffee goods for fun. And so it felt more and more like home, and by now, the summer was in full swing. I invested in more new equipment and did some more ads for companies to promote on my Instagram. I think I had around 350,000 followers by this point, and my business was starting to feel very legitimate. So the work trips continued, and I kept my eyes out for cool cars and land for sale, and by midsummer, the apartment was nearly finished. And then I met a girl named Heidi and we started dating. And one summer day we went to clean out the bus and ended up gutting the whole thing. And then I sold my red truck because I wasn't having any luck getting it to run and the bed was falling apart as well. And boy, was the summer a blast. This is around the time I began renovating my old childhood fort. So between my real estate trips, Heidi and I would go on little adventures together where I would shoot for brands. And I started to miss having an old pickup truck. I began actively searching for one when I found an old red one out in Minnesota. I planned to get it with my good friend Rob, but it ended up turning into a debacle. I've got the full story coming in a separate video. And so on the way home from that trip, I kept researching trucks until I finally found the one I wanted. I knew it as soon as I saw it. I couldn't afford it right away, but I figured if it was still available when I was ready, then it was meant to be. By now it was late summer, and fall was about to be hectic as I had more jobs planned than ever before in my life. And then while on a work trip with my good friend Mitch, I secured the truck, and it was there when I got home. One of the most surreal days of my life. My dream of owning a vintage blue pickup truck had come true. And so fall colors were coming in and Mitch got married. He had taken Dave's place in my work trip since Dave went back to school, and we were spending a lot of time editing in my apartment, which is when the idea of a creative office came up, and we found a rentable spot right close by with a big vintage Ford out front. It was going to need a lot of work, but we wanted to build a company and have our own office. We were feeling ambitious and inspired and ready for anything. And that was when I reached out to Hunter to see if he wanted to be involved. I'm doing an entire video on the office build, which will be ready soon. It's a huge part of my story that I can't wait to share with you. So fall was a whirlwind, but well worth it. I made a lot of money and produced some great content. And by now I had been living in my apartment for around 9 months and was starting to feel discontent with the design. I wanted to change it, so I documented how it looked before the renovations began. So we're getting an office. Putting together a team, and Trout and Coffee is gonna be a legitimate business. And during this process, I just need new inspiration. I don't know, it's the winter, and I like spicing things up, so I'm gonna rearrange my whole apartment. I never really gave a tour of my apartment, so I wanna do that now before I rearrange everything and it doesn't look like it does now, because it's cool, even though it's just not, I guess, I don't know, I grew out of it or something already. It's very bright and mostly summery because it's all stuff I collected over the summer, but even though it's dark in here, I figured I'd do a little tour just so you can see what it looks like before the change. And then in December of 2018, I started renovating my little space with the help of Mitch and Hunter.
It's on there, eh?
You could just screw it into the wall.
Well, it is just like... I like that better. The elk.
You know, like place in here that looks okay. What are we up to now?
Hey Alexa! Play, oh wow. Play 1930s rap.
Since the building is an old mill, there's already exposed brick. So I wanted to keep with that theme and add more brick textures where I could. And then beyond that, I wanted more shelving to put books and trinkets on and more metal and wood textures. The design I had began to feel like a college dorm or something, and I wanted to make my space more upscale and gentlemanlike, more of a study. So for a couple weeks, my apartment was an absolute mess while we transformed everything. In total, I added the fake brick on 4 or 5 walls, redid the kitchen and bathroom floor, rearranged the entire living space, got all new fixtures for the bathroom, put up a bunch of new shelves, got a new reading chair, some new decorations, and plants. Tons and tons of plants. And though I've lived there for about a year since these changes, it finally feels like I always envisioned. So here's my apartment now. Since I built a creative office, I was able to keep my apartment less orientated for work and more towards my personal life, even though the two often mix. By shifting a few things around, the space feels more open and has a much better flow. Through the use of color and textures, I was able to bring the upscale yet eclectic vibe that I was looking for. And with the addition of 42 plants, the space feels alive. Now when I get home from a long day of editing, I can walk into my beautiful Bohemian paradise with a big sigh of relief. Investing in my space is something I'll forever do, because life can be hectic as hell, and when your space makes you happy and you're content where you are, it's just one less thing to think about.